What's up, everybody? It's the Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. I am your host, Elliot Harrison. It's good to, I guess I can't really say good to see everybody. It's good to talk to everybody. I'm joined, as always, by at Marcus_Mosher, wearing a sweatshirt today, ready to go, fired up, really fired up. And, Marcus, I think really to get us started, I'm going to do something I haven't done in a long time. This right here. Hold on.
Slide the mic away. I like it.
Wait, right back in like Collinsworth.
There you go.
You love it. You
I'm
love it.
Slide my popper up and down here. There you go.
I have so many. You mean your fluffer? Don't you have like a little? Where's your powder thing you do for your makeup? Do you have like a little thing that you dab?
Yeah, it's in my my makeup studio. But yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, we got some things to get to today, including a really sorry game last night. We've got 14 teams to talk about. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to rank the 14 teams that have been involved in the playoffs. And I have not a hot sports opinion, but I have a pretty hard take and just a couple other items to get to. But I want to start us off here. Just initial takeaway from Cardinals Rams, what the Cardinals have next for them, and then how you see the way the Rams played.
Yeah, I don't think the final outcome was all that surprising, right? I think we both picked the Rams on Thursday. They're just a healthier team, right? And Matt Stafford was playing better. The Cardinals have really been in a slump the last, month and a half. Mm-hmm. Not all that surprising. The game ended up the way it did.
Yeah, the Cardinals just never looked like they were even in sync. And I don't know what was going on with Kyler Murray. I tweeted during the game that I really would have liked to seen them use his legs a little bit more. I mean, when they were down 21-0, how about some design QB draws like the Bills do with Josh Allen? Is the ankle still a real problem for him? Because he looked pretty quick to me last night.
Yeah, and I think the Rams were kind of playing into that quarterback spy stuff too. It's just he was off. He did not play well. And it's not all that surprising considering this is his first playoff game, right? This typically happens. The speed is just way different. You're playing on the road on Monday Night Football. He'll get better. He'll be better for it. I'm not surprised that he struggled, though.
You know, I feel like that is kind of like your tight ends take. You know how you always tell me that this garbage about how young quarterbacks, the best thing they can have is a tight end?
Yeah,
I feel like that's kind of a rubber stamp take saying, it's his first playoff start. A lot of quarterbacks had good games in their first playoff games.
Not many are playing against Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd. Like that's a really good defense and a really fast defense. So and on top of that, Elliot, this is a team that knows him really well. Like how many times did they play Kyler Murray over the last couple of years? So playoff games are hard. That's just what it comes down to.
Dude, as somebody who has been sleep deprived before, Cliff Kingsbury looked sleep deprived to me last night. I mean, he looks tired. I mean, did you notice just all the shots? There was no juice there. I'm not insulting the man. I'm simply just calling a spade a spade. It's like calling, when Tom Coughlin's got the rosy cheeks during the championship game. It just is what it is. And I don't know if he's under a ton of stress or what, but he doesn't look good to me, or he certainly didn't last night. And I'm not just talking about because they were losing, but as far as the Rams are concerned, obviously on Thursday, we're going to talk about their matchup going forward in the playoffs. We'll get to that on Thursday in terms of previewing that game. Mm-hmm. For the Cardinals, what do you think is next for them? Some people don't love that GM Steve Keim seems to be super safe. Other people are talking about Cliff Kingsbury and his team's penchant for late season collapses. What are you thinking about?
Two things.
Thoughts.
Thoughts. There are two linebackers they drafted in 2020 and 2021 combined to play 29 snaps last night. You can't have that, right? Like those guys have got to play, and those guys have got to be big parts of this defense. And then it's the offensive line for me. Like, the Cardinals have a not great offensive line. Rodney Hudson is the only starter that I would call above average. And when you get into these games, they were just overwhelmed. Like they could not block Aaron Donald at all. And I get it that it's Aaron Donald, but like they were just overwhelmed. They've got to fix that. I don't know if they need two new offensive tackles. They've got to improve the guard play. You're just not going to win in the playoffs with a bad offensive line, and that's what they have right now.
Corner.
Yeah, that's an issue as
Corner.
well.
They need help at corner. But I'm with you. There were a lot of positives from this team. And I think one thing that we have to remember with Cliff Kingsbury, let's see, who was their coach right before he took over for, was it Wilkes that he took over for?
Yeah, and Van Joseph was there for a while, right?
No, I'm trying to remember who was the doggone Cardinals coach.
Yeah,
I know Wilkes. They won. It was Steve Wilkes, wasn't it?
Yep.
They won 3 games with Steve Wilkes. Then they've steadily improved their win total every year. I think the next year they won. I'm going to look right now, but I think the next year they won about 5 or 6. Then last year they won, I think 8. And then how many they win this year? Right, 10 more wins for them this year. That's a steady improvement every year. It's kind of odd that Cliff Kingsbury is kind of taking it on the chin right now to me.
I think it's because of the late season collapses, right? It's really 3 years in a row where they've really struggled in December and January. And you just wonder, like, they get into these big divisional games and they really struggle. They did not play well against the Seahawks, a week ago. They lost to the Rams this week. I don't think he should be gone, but I think the hot seat is definitely getting warmer. Like, if they have the same kind of path and arc next year, I think that's when you consider moving on for maybe a guy that's a little bit more established that can kind of get them to the next level.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. So in 2018, they did win 3 games. They were 3-13. They scored 225 points, Marcus, that year. 14.1 per game. That was last in the NFL. They allowed 425. It's not often you see a 200-point differential. I mean, it happens a couple of times a year, but that's pretty huge. 2019, they go 5-10-1 with Cliff Kingsbury. Granted, not a great record, but their offense went from scoring 14.1 to 22.6. Mm-hmm. Also, their point differential was only 81 in the negative, which is still not good, obviously, but it was his first year. It's a huge improvement. Last year, they go 8-8. They score 410 points. So now they upped it to even 25.6 points per game. Their point differential was a plus 43. And then this year, the 17-game schedule always screws me up. I knew they had 6 losses. I said they won 10. They won 11 games this year. They won 11-6. Their offense went up again, up to 26.4 points per game. Their point differential this year was a pretty healthy plus 83. That's not bad, man. I think most teams in the league would take 11 wins and a plus 83 point differential.
I agree, but this team is too talented to be knocked out of the first round of the playoffs and get destroyed, right? Like, they went in on a lot of veteran guys to help them kind of get over the hump, and they're just not there yet.
But you did mention all the holes they have.
Yeah.
And if you're winning 11 games with talented guys, but major holes in other areas, again, that's not bad. And let's not forget, their best offensive player has been out. He played one game where he tried to come back. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been playing. I'm just saying, like, it'd be an odd flex to me for the Cardinals to let go of him. We'll
I agree.
What happens.
But we can agree though that next year's a huge year for Cliff, right? Like, if they flame out in the first round of the playoffs, that's when I think it's seriously time to consider moving on, right? They can't have another year like this.
I just, knowing NFL history, knowing the Cardinals history, Marcus, I mean, there aren't that many times in Cardinals history in which they've gone 500 and then had a winning record the next year, like back-to-back years like that. They've had, they've had very brief flashes of being good. They had it in the mid-70s with Don Coryell. In the mid-80s, they had a little small window, 82 to 84 with Jim Hanifin. Mm-hmm. But, man, it's been, even when they had, I think Vince Tobin, was he the coach in 98 when they beat the Cowboys with Jake Plummer and that group? What was that? Jake Plummer, Rob Moore. I'm trying to think of the guys that were on that team. That team didn't last either. So, and then obviously we saw the Kurt Warner run with Ken Wisenhunt, 2008, 2009. But that team, as soon as Kurt Warner was gone, and they were trotting Max Hall out there and
Brian
Skelton, one of your favorite.
Yep.
Yeah. St. Pierre. Wasn't that another one of the,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember them all.
Oh yeah.
So you get the point. You get the point. On to a little bit different topic here. I know the games were mostly blowouts this weekend, but this is not where this opinion is coming from. I've felt this way. I think you've felt this way too, what I'm about to say, but more than ever, I feel this way. I do not like the 7-team playoff format at all. Honestly, it was too much football this weekend. And you might say, well, that's crazy. It's never too much football. Sure, it is. You water down the competition. If it's never too much football, then why don't we just play 22 game seasons? You know, what makes the NFL special is that every game counts. And what makes every game count is because they have fewer of them than the other sports do. If you start making the playoffs like the NBA or whatever, then I think you really reduce the big game. There was no big game feel hardly for me this weekend, other than maybe 49ers Cowboys. I just didn't get a big game feel. And I think that's partially from having too many games. I think 4 was perfect. This was not a system that needed to be improved. And I would say this, I'm saying this, even though the Raiders were the most competitive team this weekend in their losses.
Yeah, and when you get rid of those 7 seeds, you end up making better games because of it. Because all of a sudden now the 6 seed is playing, well, I guess before it'd be the 3 seed, right? Rather than the what did the 6 seed play this time? I messed up. Yeah, they played the 3 seed, right? You just get better games, and I don't think this is going to change anytime soon because most of these teams are going to be the 6 and 7 seeds, barely deserve to get in. Most of the time, they have bad quarterbacks. I just didn't love the change. We didn't need it. I understand the appeal to having another game. We have football all weekend long, but the games itself were just not good.
I'm trying to, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm trying to shut off my Star Trek. It's a really cruddy episode right now. It's just really disturbing me. It's breaking my concentration. Totally breaking my concentration.
That's all right. Well, do you want to get into the power rankings so we can?
No, I don't. No,
okay.
I don't. I need to get on to one more thing.
Oh,
you know what? I will wait till we.
I know what you want to talk about.
But
I know what you want to talk about. We can wait till we can get to that team.
Well, what team do you think I'm talking about?
Oh, that'd be number 10 on our list.
Do you ever let your batteries get so low on your remotes and stuff that you have to take the little door off of it and you'll move the battery around with your fingers and see if that will actually make the remote work? Or do you not do that? Do you just go straight for new batteries?
I just go straight for new batteries. So I know I'm fancy like that, but
how do you always just have new batteries in your? Yeah, it's not working. There it goes. Done.
Because
word to your lab partner.
Because I have a 1-year-old. There's a bunch of toys that need batteries all the time, so we stockpile on them. So,
well, that and the fact that it's 29 below there right now.
Yeah, it's cold.
I have no idea how cold. I just guessed that. But when I suggested you went to Sonic the other day, that's what you told me.
Well, we got like 30 something inches of snow over the weekend. So
it's crazy.
Let's talk about, I want to go to the power rankings. Can we please talk about
I know why you want to go to the power rankings, because the team that's coming up first. So I did 14 teams this week. Again, all the teams that are involved in the playoffs. The number one team, well, excuse me, not the number one team, if you had a 4 behind it. The number 14 team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought they were the weakest team heading into the playoffs. I think they showed that pretty obviously Sunday night. Yes, I know there were other teams that got handled as well, but Pittsburgh got handled that game. Yes, they had a couple of drives late in the game when Kansas City was playing very, very soft. Any problem with this ranking? Oh my gosh, who am I asking that? I can't believe I even just scratched that last question.
No,
just talk.
Yeah, Pittsburgh had 11 straight drives in this game that gained less than 20 yards. Like, they were just so inept on offense. TJ Watt and Cam Hayward.
And that's a misnomer. Wait, I got to stop you there. That's a misnomer. They had like one drive that had 20 yards. When you say less than 20, it's not like it wasn't like they picked up a first down and they got 19 yards. They were like 6, 5, 8. Sorry.
Yeah, they were bad. Now the question for Pittsburgh going into the offseason is, how much of their offensive problems were due to Ben Roethlisberger and how much were due to Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator? My guess is they believe that Roethlisberger really kind of limited their offense, and they're excited to see what Canada can do with probably a rookie quarterback, with maybe a veteran brought in, but the offense was not good. And until that offense is fixed, they're really not going to be a contender in the AFC.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin said all options are on the table, whether it's a rookie or veteran. A dedicated listener of our podcast, Chad Ryder, who writes for NFL.com draft coverage, check him out. Chad, I'm excited to talk to when it comes to draft for this team, because I'd like to know what he thinks would be the right thing to do in terms of quarterbacks in the draft. Like, do you like quarterbacks in this draft better than what they've already got in terms of young quarterbacks on their depth chart? I think it's interesting. Do you think they can go with Mason Rudolph?
Oh, I think they could. I mean, this team has a lot of holes, and they don't have a lot of draft picks to address them all. So, is this the year that you kind of let Mason be the bridge quarterback? You address your offensive line, you clean up some spots on defense, and then 2023 you go for a quarterback? I think that's very likely.
I've always hated that whole bridge idea. That's why I hated that deal, because that's kind of the same explanation we got with David Culley being fired in Houston. Oh, as a bridge coach.
But
hey, man,
if there's not a quarterback available in this year's draft or in free agency that's a good option, what do you do? I don't think you just draft a guy to draft a guy, though, right?
I understand, but I think every time I hear the word it's a bridge, that means it's a wasted year. And so I don't like that.
Pittsburgh hasn't had many of those. They haven't had many.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a year to reset, right? I think New England had one in 2020, right? It kind of reset their books, kind of reset expectations, and then we saw them go right back to the playoffs. I kind of feel like Pittsburgh needs one of those years.
Okay. It's not my thing, but I don't want to insult anyone's bridge club though. So Courtney, you're fine. Don't worry about that at all. I still don't know how to play bridge. Philadelphia is my 13th ranked team. I think Philadelphia it was a little different in that game. I thought Philadelphia, I don't want to say they had a chance at the end, but they at least made things a little bit interesting. Yeah. But it was clear to me that Jalen Hurts was not himself running. He was running very carefully, not nearly as explosive. And Tampa Bay didn't honestly seem that worried about him either. So I think, they let him have a few runs, but all in all, Tampa Bay handled this team. Philadelphia was the weakest NFC entrant. This just underlines my point about 7 seeds. Mm-hmm. I'm going to hand you that bucket of crud.
I mean, I don't think
that's what you get from me.
Yeah. I don't think Philadelphia necessarily expected to be in the playoffs this year, right? This is kind of a rebuilding year for them. They've got 3 first-round picks coming up. But the biggest question is Jalen Hurts going to be the guy that can take over these playoff games and win them? And I just thought he looked overwhelmed in this game. And I like Jalen Hurts. I love everything about his mentality, his work ethic. It just seems like he's got so far to go before he can compete with those teams. And I wonder if the Eagles front office saw that as well. Like, hey, our roster is really good, but we're being handicapped a little bit by the quarterback. I wonder if this is the year they go all out for a guy, considering all the assets they have to go out and do it.
Yeah, when I said I'm handing you a bucket of crud, I wasn't implying the Eagles are a bad team. I was implying that I don't like the 7th seed playoff system. That's the crud I'm handing you. As far as the Eagles themselves are concerned, look, I'm not a coach. And I don't pretend to be one. I can only tell you what I see. And it does bother me when football analysts and broadcasters who are not coaches are so definitive on their podcast or whatever. You know what his problem is? He's doing this and he's doing that. And I'm like, okay, listen, bro. All right, tap the brakes. I will tell you what I see from my, whatever, if you want to call it, limited level of expertise. I see a quarterback that seems to take an extra long amount of time to go through his progressions. Yeah. He doesn't seem to see the field clearly to me. And I'm not just talking about when you watch the game angle or even the all 22. Sometimes the best thing you can do is watch the slow motion replays when they're showing you from the defensive side of the ball and they're showing the quarterback scan the field.
Yep.
It reminds me a little bit of the troubles that Alex Smith was having early in his career. Now, Alex Smith, we've talked about before, had all these different offensive coordinators. Every single year they changed it out. We're not expecting a coaching change with the Eagles. That would be a shocker. But that's what I see right now. Can that change with time? I think it can. Mm-hmm. Look, some quarterbacks are late bloomers. And I like the way the Eagles flipped the script on the season with their rushing attack. The Cardinals are number 12. We've talked about them already, obviously at the top of the podcast, but I would just say in terms of flipping the script, if the Cardinals stay with Cliff Kingsbury, which I'm sure they're going to do, and Steve Keim is still the GM. How do they stop this trend of the late season collapse? What do you address? Because I think some of this has to do with health. So you can go through your training staff and your protocols there, but do you have any other remedy other than just building through the draft?
I mean, I think the draft's
less on Kyler, maybe.
Yes, I agree. Building the offensive line would help, right? Because now he doesn't have to scramble as much. They can run the ball more. My biggest problem with this team is just a lack of depth, and they're relying on so many older players like James Conner, DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz, J.J. Watt, Rodney Hudson. And what happens is when you play a long season like this, these guys just get worn down by the time you get to December and January. So improve your depth, get a little bit younger. Maybe don't try to go after every single old veteran guy that's available in free agency. I think that will help.
I'm looking at the Cardinals cap situation and there's a team, we're going to get to some teams, that have a terrible, terrible situation, but I kind of like what you're saying here about, look, you don't have to, they may make you better right now, but does it make you better to go out and get guys if they're just going to get hurt? Not really.
Like for instance, JJ Watt, they paid him 1 year, $16 million. And I get it. When Watt's healthy, he's still a really good player, but their problem is just depth. Like when Watt's not in the lineup, they have so many holes on defense and in the secondary. Spend some of that money getting 3 or 4 good players, because that'll help you be a little bit more consistent as the year goes on.
What I'm seeing is the Cardinals have about $10 million. Now that is obviously subject to change. They're not the top team in cap space, but they certainly have more cap space than a team that we're about to get to in a second. But I'm always a little bit leery of reporting cap space because some of it is inaccurate, and also there's moves yet to be made. As far as going forward, though, are you with me that I think it'd be a mistake to let Cliff Kingsbury go?
I agree with you. Okay.
New England Patriots are at number 11. Their coach is not in trouble. I wonder if their defensive coordinator is. That's awkward. That's really awkward. Yeah. No, you're gonna go ahead and go out on a limb. Say Bill Belichick will not fire his son
because defense looked. As I say, it's still Belichick running that defense. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, they looked awful. And this was a defense you and I really liked that looked absolutely slow to react, outcoached. That was a terrible performance on Saturday night. I've never seen a Bill Belichick defense perform like that ever. Not when he was in Cleveland, certainly not when he was with the Giants, and not with the Patriots. The Bills were hot. They couldn't slow him down. I think it was 7 touchdowns on 7 drives. I want to say, where do the Patriots go from here? Because kind of like what you just pointed out with the Cardinals, there's some age in some spots here on this defense that may need to be addressed.
Start with the offense. It was just a bad game, and it was Mac Jones playing on the road in his first playoff game. He's going to be fine. Like I really don't have any doubts that Mac Jones is going to be a good quarterback. Once he becomes more comfortable in that scheme, they'll be fine. You nailed it though. It's the lack of speed on defense. It was so shocking. Like it was like watching almost 2 different sports, how much faster Buffalo was on offense. And listen, I know you love Dante Hightower just as much as I do, but he's getting up there.
Not a good game.
And when you have a slow middle linebacker, your defense is just kind of slow, and they're slow on the edges, and they're playing Kyle Van Noy, and he's getting up there. Like they've got to get faster on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, look, Devin McCourty's been in the league a long time. We're not the only guy here. J.C. Jackson didn't play a very good game. He's not old, certainly, but not a good game.
He's a free agent.
They've had they haven't been able to hide Miles Bryant in coverage. That he's the guy that struggled so bad against McKenzie the last time they played in New England. I don't know why I'm pointing behind me. This is kind of silly, but I was shocked that they played that poorly. That's why they're at 11. And that's why they're behind the Dallas Cowboys, who did beat them earlier in the year, because the Cowboys, as poorly as they played, were not as bad as New England. And these teams, I thought, were pretty even heading into the playoffs. So I've got the Cowboys at 10. I'm going to go ahead and let you say whatever you want because I think you know where I'm going to go. So, your initial thoughts now that you've had, not initial, but you've had 2 days to sit on this.
Yeah, they just played an awful game.
Are you still depressed?
Oh, yeah. I'm not necessarily depressed because of because of the game. They just got outplayed. The 49ers played a 10-time better game than they do. Cowboys had the chances, right? They had the ball first down and 10 from the 49ers 45-yard line with 2.5 minutes left, and they lost yardage. Like, they just lost the game. I think what's depressing to me is I really feel like this was their best chance to win a Super Bowl over the next couple of years. And the door, I don't want to say the window is shut, because when you have a good quarterback, that's not true. But it's going to be much tougher for this team going forward.
I agree. And this was not, how do I say it? This is one of those losses that if somebody looks at the score or they remember this game a year from now, they're going to think, hey, man, the Cowboys were there driving down the field and, yeah, they got beat, but come on, it was a close game. No, it wasn't. This was not a close game. It was a close game due to a bunch of different situations. But in terms of level of play from the two teams, this was a clear 49er victory. If the Cowboys won that game by a Hail Mary, it not only is a Hail Mary lucky in and of itself, but I thought they were lucky to be in that position, Marcus, in the first place, to even have an opportunity to, have the ball and be driving down the field. So a couple things here real quick. Number one, regarding the snap play, if the Cowboys got that play down, they're still only going to have a chance for a 25-yard throw into the end zone. That's it. That's a less than 10% chance. Okay. The Cardinals are going to flood the end zone. It's going to be hard. We don't even know that Dak's protection would have held up against the 3-man line. Cause quite frankly, the Cowboys offensive line didn't play well and Dak didn't play well. So who's to say he'd even throw the ball to where it was catchable in the end zone? I mean, there is a skill to throwing the ball from, that distance out into the end zone where your guys can make a play on it. I've seen plenty of rocket balls in that situation, or balls thrown out of the end zone or balls thrown too short. The play itself that's come under question, I know it's been scrutinized for 2 days. All I want to say on that is something I told you on the phone. If you're going to blame Mike McCarthy and the coaching because of that play, that's the wrong thing to circle. I think Mike McCarthy does need to be questioned on his coaching. He needs to be questioned for constantly putting the onus of poor discipline on the refs. How many times have we seen it? At least a couple times this year where he's like, hey, I didn't know we were going to have to play two teams out there. When you keep saying that stuff, you keep telling your players it's not your responsibility, it's the refs. Marcus, I saw one, arguably two calls against the Cowboys on Sunday that were questionable. Mm-hmm. The other, how many were they called for? 14 or 15?
14 penalties. Yep.
Yeah. The only calls I saw that were questionable were the ones called on Randy Gregory, not the lining up in the neutral zone, but the jumping off sides. Cause I know at least on one of them, Trent Williams moved.
Yep.
And that should have been called off sides. And I thought Trent Williams might've moved on another occasion. Other than that, did you see any calls that were close to egregious?
No, I think in terms of like penalties and stuff, it was accurate. I think they did a good job in this game.
As far as the play call, it was risky. And it's a risk because if it's not pulled off perfectly, you're not going to get it. And Dak did not pull it off perfectly. So if you want to say that it was a bad call because of that, I'm okay. But if Dak Prescott does what he's supposed to do, which is get down sooner and hand the ball to the ref, we're not having this conversation. And so I just think those guys need to take responsibility. One of the biggest calls in the game was the Neville Gallimore hands to the face on, was it Alex Mack? I can't remember. He pushed his face mask. Mm-hmm. Like, right. Yeah. It was a good call. It was an important play in the game. And Gallimore goes to Twitter and instantly takes responsibility for it. That's what I want to see from the quarterback and the head coach. And this team is not going to get better until they take full responsibility without making any comments about the refs along with it. That's my take.
I agree. Let's move on.
Let's move on. You're like, yeah, enough of that. I don't need to hear this anymore. Yeah. All right. The Raiders are at number 9. Now you might be surprised that I have the Raiders over the Cowboys. Are the Raiders a better team than the Cowboys? Certainly not on paper. But at this point, they beat them on Thanksgiving. Now, that was a game the Cowboys had good issue with the refs, but the Raiders still beat them, and the Raiders did it with losing Waller in the middle of that game. And the Raiders, I think, acquitted themselves the best this weekend among all these teams. Whether they look good on paper or not, Marcus, these guys show up and they play really, really hard for Rich Bisaccia. And that goes a long way. When you play hard for your head coach, you've got great kicker that can keep things tight, and your quarterback makes plays at the end of a football game, you're going to stay in just about every game.
Yep. Yeah. And it's trying to get over the hump, right? Go from a contender, for a wild card spot to actually being a threat to the Chiefs, to the Bills, and the Bengals. How do they do that? It's going to be a tough challenge for whatever GM and head coach come in here, because the overall roster is not very good, as you mentioned at the top. But they've got some pieces in the right spots. It's big offseason for the Raiders.
I just think we've all been kind of not doing this team justice, because we kind of keep talking about how weak they are. But again, if the guys play for their head coach, I'm into the emotional part more than the analytical part. Guys that play for their head coach and the quarterback makes plays at the end of the game and your kicker is money. Oh, that guy amazes me. He had a great year.
Yeah.
Daniel Carlson is who I'm speaking of, obviously. Yep. He's a stud. And then, oh, by the way, if you want to add in there, having a great pass rusher makes a big difference too. It fires up your team. It helps your coverage. It helps your pass rusher on the other side. I'm talking about Max Crosby, who, by the way, had another good game against Cincinnati. I think he posted his stats. What was it? 7 pressures? Yeah.
5 hurries, 4 quarterback knockdowns. Played really, really well.
Yeah. So at some point we've got to drop the roster analysis, drop the analytics, and just say, look, man, this is a good football team because they play against good teams and they play them hard and they stay in the game. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about the Raiders offseason. Just real quick before we get off of them, Mike Mayock got fired, the GM. I used to work with Mike Mayock at NFL Network, and the move surprised me a little bit. I don't think he's missed as bad in the draft as people have said. They've missed at the top of the draft. They've actually gotten some good value, I think, Marcus, after that. There are some not good moves, but in your opinion, do you think if you hire a new GM, there's any way Rich Bisaccia keeps his job? Or do you think Rich Bisaccia should keep his job as the head coach?
So they are going to have a new GM. We'll see what they do there. I really, really hope they hire the GM before the head coach, because I've never seen it work the other way, where you hire the head coach first and then the GM. It doesn't work that way. Hire a GM, and I would like to just keep Rich Bisaccia as a special teams coach. I think the players absolutely love him. I think there'd be a little bit of a mutiny if you fired him, but I think he would be fine sliding back into that special teams job. So keep him on the roster, but I'm not sure he's the right guy to be the long-term head coach for the Raiders.
Yeah, and I did a poor job asking you that question. Yep. I think we all agree he deserves to keep his head coach job. It's not a question of deserving. It's whether the Raiders feel like they can find a better organizational fit to be a head coach for the future. But anyone who would say, no, he doesn't deserve it that's crazy. The guy, in my mind, the guy should be a candidate for coach of the year. Maybe not win it, but certainly should be a candidate for it. Let's go to number 8 here and talk about a new team. Well, not a new team, a new old team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Someone that Marcus is out on the Ravens culture and out on a bunch of other things, but he is all in, chips to the middle of the table on this team. Did anything about the game, though, on Saturday concern you? Because the Raiders had every opportunity to win that game.
No, because they had an opportunity, but I really feel like they dominated the Raiders for most of that game. Like I really do. Jamar Chase was incredible. The offense was just clicking, right? Like you could see what this offense wants to be like with Jamar Chase dominating, T. Higgins making big plays. And I'm all in on Joey B. Like Burrow is incredible, man. And listen, this is what happens sometimes when you have a truly elite quarterback. They'll get you further into the playoffs than sometimes you ever expect. Yeah, I love him. I love him so much.
Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
Would not be surprised if the Bengals go a little bit further than anybody anticipates in these playoffs.
What? Is this like one of your biggest man crushes of all time? I know your dad.
No, it's second. You know who my number 1 man crush is, but it's second.
It's Dion, right?
No, it's Justin Herbert. Herbert is my guy, right? But Burrow and Herbert are so much fun.
I thought you told me though that your dad bought you the Rocky box set on
Yeah.
VHS, right?
Yep.
And you had a huge man crush on like Stallone, right? And you watched those tapes until like the stuff came out, right?
Oh yeah. Rocky's great. Rocky 3 all the way though. It's the best Rocky ever.
Well, all right. So, I'm just looking at the Raiders Bengals box score. And I mean, it's true. It's hard to make a case, I think, really, that the Raiders played as well as the Bengals did. They just had an opportunity. And
Yeah.
and there was also, if there was, if there was a bad call in a game or a bad situation officiating, it was not the Cowboys 49ers game. It was this one for sure. It's just we're kind of far away from that game now. Let's go to San Francisco at number 7. The 49ers beat the Bengals in early December. These teams, I think, are kind of even, although in different ways. I've already said the 49ers completely outplayed the Cowboys. I was surprised the Cowboys had a chance late in that game. Kyle Shanahan, I think, might have made a coaching decision or two that was questionable, but you got to walk away from that game, Marcus, and be impressed, not just with Debo again, because Debo is incredible, but losing Bosa, they lost 2 guys on their defensive line, and then Fred Warner hurt his ankle in that game, and they still played really tough. They still got after Dak Prescott. Gosh, I feel like the 49ers could beat anybody if Jimmy Garoppolo plays well.
And that's the thing, right? Jimmy Garoppolo played well for 3 quarters in this game.
Yeah.
And in the quarter that he played bad, he almost lost them this game, right? Like the Cowboys had a legitimate chance to win this game at the end because Garoppolo tried to throw multiple interceptions and he snapped the ball too quickly at the end of the game, which caused a false start or which caused an illegal shift. So I agree. This team is incredible. I just still don't trust Garoppolo in a big game. And now that he's going to Lambeau with a bad thumb and a bad shoulder, I feel even less convinced that he's going to be able to beat them. I love this 49er team, though. They're really fun.
You're going to hear a lot about the fact that Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 against the 49ers. But a couple of things. The 2019 NFC Championship, that game was less about Aaron Rodgers and about the fact that the Packers' run defense literally couldn't stop anything.
That's the Raheem Mostert. Yeah.
Yeah. What did he run for? Like
231. I think it was 231. Yep.
It was unbelievable.
Yep.
Okay. The other playoff losses were 2012 and 2013. And the 49ers had no answer for Colin Kaepernick. In 2012, Colin Kaepernick ran for like 162 yards on them.
Against Dom Capers' defense. Yep.
Yes. And then in 2013, they played in a really cold game, and the Packers were, prepared for Colin Kaepernick running, but they didn't realize, the guy can't throw the ball too. And he had pretty good pass catchers making plays for him. That was the game. I'll never forget. Michael Crabtree made some big plays over the middle, and Jim Harbaugh called him the best pass catcher in football. Do you remember that?
I do. Yep.
Yeah.
I do.
I couldn't totally get behind that one. Although, Crabtree played okay for the Raiders. He had some nice moments, but
he did.
Yeah. So they went up in the cold at Lambeau and beat the Packers fair and square. I think this is a different team. I think this is even a different 49er team than the 2019 version. But it's more that Green Bay's defense, I think, is going to play a lot better than it did in that 2019 game.
I agree. This is a really, really fun team. And you just wonder, would Trey Lance give them a little bit better of a chance to win this game because of his rushing ability? I don't know. But I'm excited. This is probably the game I'm the most excited to watch this weekend.
As disappointed as you were in the Cowboys' loss, don't you kind of feel like walking away from this game? They lost to the better team. Or do you just think it was matchup based?
I think it was matchup based. I still think you play that game 10 times and they probably split them. But I think I mean, we saw it during the regular season. I think the Cowboys are more capable of beating other teams. It's just a terrible matchup for them.
I would agree with you. I would if we did it by, we look at the player matchups. I agree. But part of being an NFL team on the field is your coaching staff, your head coach, and your culture. Do you panic in certain situations, things like that? The Cowboys have a culture of committing penalties and abdicating responsibility. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is also a better head coach. So I would wrap that in. And so in my mind, the 49ers are a better football team.
I'm out on Cowboys culture.
How about Bills culture? Because, it's whether I know you've said the Bills are frauds this year, and I totally understand why. But even if the Bills are mad, they just drive you crazy sometimes how inconsistent they are. It's fun watching a Bills game when that stadium is going. I think that's one of the coolest venues in the NFL. And even though I hated to see the Patriots play like that, and I predicted that wrong, it was fun seeing just that atmosphere. And I think that plays into it for the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, this is the peak Bills game, right? Everything was clicking. Josh Allen had the best game that we've ever seen him play. I just don't trust them on a week-to-week basis at all. Like, because we saw this in the regular season, right?
Yeah.
They played some bad teams and they destroyed them. And then they played a good team and they looked awful, or they played terrible against the Jaguars. Until they can put together 2 or 3 games like this, I probably still won't trust them.
Just a couple little thoughts from me on this. Devin Singletary looked very, very quick. Mm-hmm. Now, the blocking was there. When you're so concerned about the quarterback running, it's going to open up opportunities. But, man, he looked exceptionally fast. Mm-hmm. On Saturday. He played a great game. He took advantage of his opportunities. The other thing, that Micah Hyde interception, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that a first quarter interception changed the way that game played out.
Yep.
That was a big league. I don't think that play has been circled enough. Too many other things happened this weekend. To me, that was probably the play of the weekend. In terms of the best play I saw by any player, it was the Micah Hyde interception on the deep ball. I'm trying to remember who Mac Jones was going to on that ball.
I think it was the Kendrick Bourne. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was a good ball from Mac. He could have laid it out a little bit more, but oh man, what a play. Okay, number 5, I've got the Los Angeles Rams. They dominated the Cardinals. We talked a little bit about that game right off the top. For me, obviously, you've mentioned the Rams defense. There was a scary situation with Cam Akers and Budda Baker, and I think Cam Akers would like to have that back the way he handled that afterwards. But I will give Cam Akers credit. He looked really quick. He ran effectively. I think this Rams team is better when they run the ball. It helps out the receivers. And OBJ got involved.
Yeah, they're going to be a tough matchup for the Bucs. We'll talk about that on Thursday. But when Odell's playing like that and he's snapping out of his breaks and he's making plays after the catch, they're hard to beat. Stafford looked still a little bit uncomfortable in the first half. He was taking some big shots. This Rams team is really good.
He looks really awkward throwing the ball. He threw a beautiful ball, but the way Odell holds the ball, it's kind of like LaShawn McCoy holding the ball when he was running, Yep. And it also kind of reminded me of the actor GIF that you sent out a long time ago that made you famous for
Robbie Amell. Shout out to the Duff. Great movie.
If you've never seen that, go to Marcus's Twitter. What would they have to type in, or what would they have to type in search?
Just
your name and what?
Just type in Robbie Amell on Google, and it's the first thing that pops up. So poor Robbie.
I was trying to get your Twitter more action.
That's right.
You don't tweet enough. So okay, let's go to Tennessee at number 4. They're batting cleanup for us. Maybe I could say that properly. Titans didn't play. They had a bye week. Not a lot to say here that's different other than Derrick Henry. Do you anticipate Derrick Henry playing and getting a monster workload? Deontay Foreman's been effective for them. They've used a couple of backs. What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a huge Derrick Henry workload in this game. The Bengals have some injuries on their defensive line. Larry Ogunjoye, who has played a lot this season, out with an injury. Trey Hendrickson is dealing with a concussion.
Don't preview the game.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Previewing the game.
Derrick Henry changes this offense. And with A.J. Brown and Henry healthy, still a sleeper to win the Super Bowl. I saw their odds today are plus 850 to win the Super Bowl. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Oh my gosh. So you just basically said everything that you're possibly going to say on Thursday about the game.
No,
so when I ask you about the game on Thursday, you're going to be like, look, I'm worried about their nickel and dime package because you're going to have nothing else.
I'll talk about D'Amico Autry and
you got his name wrong again. Yes. It's not D'Amico Autry.
I did it on purpose. Get out of here.
No, you didn't. You're catching up to me. What am I at on the season? Am I at 5 or 6 with Greg Kittle?
I think you're at 6. You said Greg Kittle twice instead of George Kittle.
Oh, that's right. I did say it twice. I'm looking at the Titans yards per carry. Deontay Foreman had 4.3 this year. Dontrell Hilliard 6.3. Even Ryan Tannehill at 4.9.
What did Derrick Henry average?
4.3. But Derek, see, but I don't yards.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Is this an argument for running backs don't matter if all the guys are averaging the same amount of yards per carry?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because Derrick Henry gets the ball in every situation, which drives his yards per carry down. That's what happened to John Riggins. So, yeah, when you're getting the ball in 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 and goal line all the time, your yards per carry is going to stink. Okay. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Bucks at 3, shall we? They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They dominated most of that game. It only got a little bit, I wouldn't say it ever got uncomfortable. It just got a little juice to it with about 7 minutes to go in the 4th quarter. I thought that Whitehead played a great game for the Bucks at safety. Yes, man. He was injured last year, and I give Todd Bowles a lot of credit, but just schematically watching that game, it was really cool to watch. I love defense. I like good defense. I'm not one of these people that gets mad because there's not enough fantasy points. I love that. I love it when you can use a player like that. What are you smirking about?
I agree with you. I have something I want to point out. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Other than the fact that PPR stinks, go ahead.
Their first round pick, Joe Tryon, is the guy that they used to spy Jalen Hurts in this game. And it was incredible to watch. They are so loaded on the defensive line. It's ridiculous. And then last thing, to watch Tom Brady play in that game at, 44 years old now, 45 years old.
Yeah.
And the ball's coming out quick and he's got arm strength and he's driving the ball down the field. And then the next day to watch Ben Roethlisberger at 38 struggle to throw a 7-yard out. I mean, it's not to take away from Roethlisberger. It's actually just to show how
Brady is. You would never do that. I mean, you're not that kind of guy that would just.
I'm trying to bring up Brady. His arm doesn't look any worse now than it did 15 years ago. It really doesn't.
Sometimes when you talk about a quarterback driving the ball down the field, it's always about driving the ball down the field. Sometimes you could see a quarterback's arm strength on the shorter plays.
Yes.
The ball that I was most impressed with was the one that he threw out in the flat that he was trying to beat the Eagles corner from jumping the route. And so he knew he had to smoke it over there. And he did. The Eagles, I can't remember which defender it was, tried to jump it, couldn't get there in time because Brady smoked it. And they ended up, getting about 10 yards on the play. It's a short throw, but he knew what he had to do and he put extra mustard on it and he used torque and drove the ball. It's awesome to watch. One last thing on Whitehead though, remind me a little bit of when the Patriots put Patrick Chung up on the line in the Super Bowl against the Rams. Mm-hmm. And, Whitehead's not a huge player. Okay. This isn't like, I'm trying to think of a great example. This isn't Cam Chancellor over there, you know, but he is a sure tackler. And against a team that was so good at running the football this year, I think Philadelphia ended up number 1 in rushing offense. It's just, it worked out. It was cool to see. I love defensive strategy. Kansas City Chiefs at number 2. One of the things we've talked about a lot with them in terms of defensive strategy, Steve Spagnuolo was able to move Chris Jones inside. Once they got Melvin Ingram, you were a huge fan of that move. For the most part, the Chiefs defense looked really good. There was a little letdown in the 4th quarter because they're just letting the clock run and the Steelers complete 8-yard passes. But you can ignore that. Kansas City still looks like the favorite in the AFC to me. That's why I have them at 2 and Tennessee at 4. Any problem with this?
No, I mean, Kansas City's been to the AFC Championship game, 3 straight years. It's probably going to make it a 4th year. They started out slow, right? No points at the first quarter. They had a fumble return for a touchdown. They had an interception. And then I think it was 6 straight touchdown drives. Like, this offense is unbelievable when they get going.
Yeah.
And Jerick McKinnon, somebody who was he was injured for 2 years in San Francisco, was kind of a complimentary piece in Minnesota, goes to the Chiefs, and now they're finally unlocking him. He looks quick. He looks explosive, and he's just another member of the running backs don't matter crew. So shout out to Jerick McKinnon.
And this is what the 49ers thought they were getting.
Yes.
I think it was 2018 that they got him, and he was a little bit of a fantasy darling that year, if you remember.
Well, they spent a ton of money on him. And
he got hurt before preseason. Was it?
I think it was in camp. Yep.
In camp, right. Catch the ball. He's explosive. He's a tough little back. And Yeah, I think it's been a nice pickup for that football team, and the Chiefs are rolling, and they may be in the Super Bowl again, and a lot of people think they might play their same opponent from Super Bowl one, the Green Bay Packers, who were on the bye. There's not a lot to say here other than Zadarius Smith and Jair Alexander, their availability. Marcus, that can be a big thing if those guys are healthy for their postseason. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, this is probably still the best team in football. I would be shocked if they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. Like, they have home field advantage. Whatever team they play, I mean, obviously they're going to be playing the 49ers this week, but whatever team they play in the conference championship game, I think they should be a 6 or 7 point favorite. They're really good, and they've got the MVP at quarterback. It's going to be hard to beat them.
Yeah, I think I saw Aaron Nagler tweet today. He covers the Packers, and by the way, good follow. If you're you like to see what's going on with the Packers, or why are you smirking?
Because I had to unfollow him yesterday because I was so depressed. I didn't want to hear any more Green Bay Packer propaganda. And Aaron's a friend of mine. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. What was the Packer propaganda?
Nothing. It was just they were nothing. They were just blaming Mike McCarthy for everything. I don't know. Just typical Green Bay Packer excitement. That's all. I was in a vulnerable spot yesterday, Elliot. That's all I got to say.
I know, and I felt like you were disappointed with me for what I was saying to you on the phone.
No, I wasn't disappointed. I was upset.
Look, I don't put it all on Mike McCarthy. I feel like would you agree with this? A lot of the blame and criticism for McCarthy, at least initially, right after the game, especially on social media, was about the play call.
Probably.
Like, why would you call? And I'm telling you, if the quarterback runs that play properly, we're not having this conversation.
Correct.
So that's the only criticism I would accept there is, yeah, but that's why you don't make that play call, because he's got to do it perfectly and you need a couple more seconds. Okay, I can agree with that. I just don't think it was a horrible call. What do you?
I love that we're talking about. I'm loving that we're talking about the Cowboys during the Packers segment. This is great. Anything that talks less about the Packers is great for me.
The Packers were on a bye, and but they are getting healthier. I think this is the strongest team in the league. If there's one weakness of the Packers, what do you think it is? If there's one spot where you think, okay, this could be problematic for them, other than health.
I still think that you can run the ball on this team. Now, can you do it long enough to keep up with Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. But I do think if you kind of run right at them, I think you can expose their linebackers a little bit.
Yeah, so they're our number one team. I would say the two toughest matchups for Green Bay, in my opinion, are our number 4 team, the Tennessee Titans, and our number 7 team, the 49ers, who they're playing this week. And if Jimmy Garoppolo plays well, look out. But we will talk about that game on Thursday. And I don't want to downrate Kansas City. I just think Green Bay might be able to match up better, Marcus, with Kansas City. I feel like you've got something just dying to come out. Is it about McCarthy?
No. I'm really looking forward to the divisional round. I don't think we're going to have any bad games. I think these are all going to be really competitive. But I'll be honest, the one that makes me the most excited is Bengals Titans, because you know how much I love Joe Burrow, but I love the way the Titans kind of play a smash mouth style football. That's going to be a really, really entertaining game.
Ironic thing here, the Bengals' last playoff win was in after the 1990 season. They beat the Houston Oilers, and the Houston Oilers obviously became the Tennessee Titans. That's who they're playing. Again, we'll talk more about those matchups on Thursday at our usual time, around 12 o'clock Pacific. Marcus, as I always do, though, I'm going to give you the final word on anything you'd like. You could talk movies, you could talk your sweaters. What do you got?
I think our final 8 teams are all really good. Like, I could you see every one of these teams actually winning the Super Bowl, winning the next 3 games? Because I could. I think this is one of the deepest, divisional rounds that we've had in a long time.
I'm with you. I think the least likely team to do that would be Cincinnati, but would I say it's totally out of the question? I wouldn't. So
I think it's the 49ers, but I listen, I think if they beat Green Bay, I think I could see the 49ers winning the Super Bowl. Their hardest game is going to be this next one, but if they win that one, why not?
Oh, I would love a 49ers Bengals Super Bowl for the third time. That'd be cool. Both of the first two were good. Super Bowl 16 and Super Bowl 23 was an excellent Super Bowl. One last thing, too, about the divisional round: 4 games, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, the way that it should be. The games have juice because they're important. There's less of them. We don't have any Monday night BS. I'm sorry, man. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong.
No, as an East Coast dad, I was struggling to stay awake from that game last night. So
Yeah.
yeah, no Monday night games for me, please.
Yeah. So there we go. That's all we got. We want to thank Courtney and the crew over at Brinks. And we will see you guys, or you can listen to us on Thursday. He is at Marcus_Mosher. Make sure you follow him for Locked On Cowboys, although I would not listen to any takes he's had over the last 48 hours in that regard. And I'm Matt Harrison, NFL. We really appreciate you guys. Take care.